I'm really fascinated by the way in which you seem to be drawn to different materials and different, ways of making art too. I mean, is it also because you feel like there are things that you can achieve with certain art forms that you can't with other art forms?
Yeah, definitely. I was never a figurative person. I mean, I took, life drawing classes and life painting classes and I did draw before and my drawings are okay, but I never jumped into that more. And, I mean, it takes practice and experience and just doing. And I just never had the inclination to do it. Although right now I'm kind of into illustration and I'm like, could I do illustration? But, for me, I don't want to say growing up, but maybe it is growing up because of the whole pop art thing. For me, like my life in art has always been about or been like I studied Dada and I studied pop art and I studied conceptual art and mixed media. I mean, I'm very into modern and contemporary art and how artists after Duchamp, anything goes. Artists, it wasn't just about painting or photography, but it was about artists using whatever material they could to communicate, to get their message out there. And so for me, once that door opened, it's like, oh my gosh, there's like tons of things I could do. And, I look at everything and I'm like, can I use that in my art? I have like this whole pile of shoe boxes and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with those? I need to do something with those. Or, I mean, I'm not a hoarder, a collector, in that way, like, a lot of artists I know, but, if there's something that I see, like, for instance, my, like for my part of my eating disorder, I was my binge food was Yogurtland. And so at Yogurtland, they have their own spoons. And I would save my spoons. And then I started to collect them. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to use these in my art somehow. And then when I realized what I was going to do with them, I actually contacted Yogurtland and they sent me like 200 or 300 more. It was great. And so, I have a whole series, like a whole a project that's called Comfort and Joy and, using Yogurtland spoons.
Is there also a thing of, and when you're saying you're not collecting them, but also using things that perhaps people just don't think about as much and maybe even just throw away and don't see the beauty in too?
Yeah, yeah. For me, I mean, I'm not an assemblage artist in that way. I do have a lot of friends who do exactly that. They see the beauty in everything. The way I use objects and I use material, it kind of has to fit my message. For instance, I have another piece called Let Me Eat Cake, which I bought like glass cake stands. And what I did was I had shredded pages from my journal in these cake stands. So there's 5 of them and there's like these shredded papers in these cake stands and it's on the shelf. And so the material that I use definitely like correlates to, or its intention is about like my work or my concept. I have another newer piece called King and Queen, and I'm all about containing things too, whether it's in jars or whether it's in like the cake stands or what are they called? The kitchen, like the vacuum sealed kitchen bags that, you preserve food in. Or recently I started collecting when you buy like a comforter or when you buy sheets, a lot of times they're in this this clear plastic bag that zips. And so I started collecting those and I always recycle work too. I always a lot of my work from the past is no longer around except for in photos because I've taken those pieces and put them in new pieces. And so I tend to do that a lot. And so some of my older work and like some of my Yogurtland spoons are now in these like plastic comforter bags, which again, the whole term comforter with comfort, it's like that's part of my therapy too, is like wanting more comfort, and so there's so many different levels in that way.